The first contact happened on a Tuesday afternoon in Geneva. Ambassador Crixel of the Galactic Council stood in the United Nations Assembly Hall, his thin gray body shaking with something between fear and disgust as he looked at the gathered human delegates. His species, the Velthari, had evolved on a paradise world where the temperature never varied more than 5 degrees, and the largest predator was the size of a house cat. To him, Earth was a nightmare made real. "Your world," he said through his translator device, "is classified as a Category 9 Deathworld. We did not believe intelligent life could evolve in such conditions. We were wrong and we are concerned." Secretary General Maria Santos leaned forward in her chair. She was a small woman with dark hair going gray at the temples, but her eyes were sharp as knives. Behind her sat representatives from every nation on Earth, all watching the alien visitor with expressions ranging from wonder to barely hidden suspicion. Concerned about what, exactly? Crixel's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. His translator hummed softly as he gathered his thoughts. "Your planet has earthquakes that swallow cities, storms that flatten forests, predators with teeth and claws designed for killing, diseases that have killed millions of your kind. Radiation from your own sun causes cancer in your bodies. Your atmosphere itself tried to burn during what you call the Great Oxidation Event, wiping out most life that existed at that time. And yet here you stand." He paused, his thin arms spreading wide. "How?" A murmur went through the assembly. Santos smiled slightly, an expression that seemed to unnerve the alien diplomat. "We adapted, we survived, we learned." "That is what concerns us," Crixel said, his voice dropping lower through the translator. "The Galactic Council has observed your species for some time now. We have watched you survive ice ages that covered your world in frozen death. We have watched you survive volcanic eruptions that blocked out your sun. We have watched you survive plagues that killed half your population. We have watched you survive the extinction of 99% of all species that ever lived on your world." His 4 eyes fixed on Santos with an intensity that made lesser diplomats look away. "We have watched you hunt predators to extinction, tame fire and make it your servant, split the atom itself, and reach for the stars." Santos nodded slowly. "Humanity has had a difficult journey. We are proud of how far we have come." "We have also watched you make war upon yourselves," Crixel continued, with a brutality that shocked even our military advisors. "They have studied the conflicts you call world wars. They have analyzed your nuclear weapons. They have seen the images from your history books." He shuddered, a ripple passing through his gray skin. "Your species has done things to itself that we could not imagine doing to our worst enemies." Santos did not look away. Her face remained calm, but something flickered in her eyes. "We are not proud of all our history, but we have learned from it." "Have you?" Crixel stepped closer to the podium where Santos stood. "In the 200 years since you developed nuclear weapons, you have built enough of them to destroy your world several times over. You have pointed them at each other, threatening destruction on a scale that would make most species go extinct. And yet you survived that too." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Your species has a saying, 'What does not kill you makes you stronger.' The Council has never seen a species for which this is more true." The assembly hall had gone silent. Every human in the room was watching the alien with careful attention now. "Which is why I am here to deliver an ultimatum," Crixel said. The word hung in the air like poison. Santos felt her hands tighten on the podium, but she kept her voice steady. "Go on." "The Galactic Council demands that humanity disarm immediately. You will destroy all nuclear weapons within 1 standard galactic year. You will dismantle all military vessels capable of interplanetary travel. You will cease all research into weapons technology of any kind. You will accept galactic monitors on your world to ensure compliance. You will be," he paused, seeming to search for the right word, "contained." Santos stood slowly. Her voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it that made even the alien take a step back. "And if we refuse?" Then the Council will be forced to take action to protect the galaxy from what you might become. The silence that followed was the silence before a storm. Santos looked around the assembly hall. Representatives from every nation on Earth looked back at her. She saw fear on some faces, anger on others. But on most, she saw something else entirely. Something old. Something that had kept humanity alive through extinction events and ice ages and wars that had nearly ended them. Defiance. Ambassador Crixel, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the Great Hall, please tell the Galactic Council that humanity respectfully declines their generous offer. Crixel's skin went pale, shifting from gray to an almost white color that indicated extreme distress in his species. You do not understand. The Council has ended species before when they posed a threat to galactic peace. We have the power to. To what? Santos interrupted, stepping forward until she was barely an arm's length from the alien. To destroy us. Ambassador, we have been trying to destroy ourselves for thousands of years, and we haven't managed it yet. We survived ice ages by wrapping ourselves in animal skins and making fire with sticks. We survived predators by sharpening rocks and throwing them with deadly accuracy. We survived diseases by injecting ourselves with weakened versions of them. We survived the atom bomb by building more atom bombs and pointing them at anyone who might use theirs. She stepped closer still. Crixel retreated, his 4 eyes wide. We are the children of a Deathworld, Ambassador. We are what happens when life refuses to die. We are the result of 4 billion years of survival in conditions that would kill any other intelligent species in this galaxy. Do you really want to find out what we become when someone else tries to kill us? Crixel had no response. He simply stared at the small human woman who had just threatened the entire Galactic Council without raising her voice. In that moment, he understood something that his people had never grasped before. Humans were not aggressive because they wanted to be. They were aggressive because they had to be. Their world had made them this way, and that made them far more dangerous than any species that simply chose violence. The ambassador left Earth 3 days later. His ship carried his report to the Council homeworld of Velar Prime, where it was read with growing unease by the gathered representatives of 47 species. The report detailed everything: the humans' refusal, their defiance, and something else. Something that Crixel had felt but struggled to put into words. They are not afraid of death, he had written. They have lived with it so long that they have become comfortable with it. They joke about it. They make art about it. They have religions built around it. Death is not their enemy. It is their old companion. High Counselor Morthax, an ancient being whose species had guided the galaxy for 10,000 years, leaned forward on his hover platform as he finished reading. His scales had faded with age, but his mind was still sharp. Then we must act. Send the cleansing fleet. The cleansing fleet was the Council's ultimate weapon against threats to galactic peace. 50,000 warships, each capable of reducing a continent to glass. They had been used only twice in galactic history, both times to eliminate species that had grown too dangerous to contain. The fleet assembled in the outer reaches of the Sol system 3 months later. Admiral Vrex, a veteran of a dozen campaigns against lesser threats, commanded from the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Justice. He looked at the blue-green world on his view screen with something like regret. Such a beautiful planet, he said to his bridge crew. A pity it breeds such dangerous creatures. His tactical officer, a young female of his species with sharp eyes and quick reflexes, looked up from her console. Admiral, we are detecting unusual activity on Earth's surface. Multiple launches from various locations across the planet. Launching what? Unknown. They appear to be missiles of some kind, but they are not moving toward us. They are moving toward each other. Admiral Vrex frowned, his scaled brow furrowing in confusion. Show me. The view screen changed to show Earth from space. Thousands of bright trails were rising from the planet's surface, crossing paths, redistributing themselves into new patterns. It looked almost like a dance, a complex choreography of fire and metal. "What are they doing?" The tactical officer's face went pale as she analyzed the data. "Admiral, I believe they are launching their nuclear weapons, all of them, but they are not targeting us. They are repositioning them in orbit." "Why would they?" The communications console suddenly lit up with an incoming transmission. A message was coming in from Earth, directed specifically at the cleansing fleet. Admiral Vrex ordered it displayed. A human face appeared on the screen, an older woman with dark hair and sharp eyes. Admiral Vrex recognized her from Crixel's detailed reports. Secretary General Maria Santos. "Admiral," she said, her voice calm and measured, "welcome to the Sol system. I see you brought a fleet. How nice. We brought something too." The view screen split to show a tactical display alongside her face. Around Earth, forming a perfect sphere, hung 40,000 nuclear warheads. But there was something different about them. Something that made Admiral Vrex's blood run cold in his veins. "You may have noticed our modifications," Santos continued with a slight smile. "We've been busy since Ambassador Crixel's visit. Our scientists worked around the clock to create what we call the Prometheus Array. Every nuclear warhead on Earth, linked together in a single network, each one carrying a payload of antimatter that we synthesized from your own technology that Crixel so kindly left lying around in his shuttle." Admiral Vrex gripped his armrest so hard that the metal groaned under his claws. "You weaponized antimatter in 3 months. That's impossible." Santos's smile widened. "We split the atom in 3 years, Admiral. We went from horse-drawn carriages to landing on our moon in less than 70 years. We decoded our own genetic sequence in little more than a decade. When humanity is motivated, we work very fast indeed. And you motivated us quite thoroughly." Admiral Vrex stared at the tactical display, his mind racing to process what he was seeing. 40,000 nuclear warheads, each one enhanced with antimatter. The destructive potential was beyond anything he had ever encountered. Even the cleansing fleet, with all its might, could not guarantee survival against such a weapon. "This is madness," he said, his voice barely steady. "If you detonate those weapons, then we all die. Earth, your fleet, everyone." Santos's expression did not change. If anything, she seemed more calm than before. "Mutually assured destruction, Admiral. It is an old friend of ours. We invented it back when we were still pointing weapons at each other. It kept us from destroying ourselves for decades. Now it will keep you from destroying us. You would kill your own people, your own world, just to take us with you." "Admiral, you are speaking to a species that invented suicide bombing, a species that flew airplanes into buildings full of their own kind, a species that developed nuclear weapons and then built enough of them to end all life on their planet, just to prove a point to their neighbors." Santos leaned forward, her eyes like cold stars. "Do not make the mistake of thinking we are bluffing." Admiral Vrex looked at his officers. They were all staring at the view screen, their faces pale with shock. None of them had expected this. None of them had prepared for an enemy willing to destroy themselves to destroy their enemies. "But here is the interesting part," Santos continued. "We have calculated the blast radius of our Prometheus array. It will reach Velar Prime." Admiral Vrex felt his heart stop, both of them. "That is impossible. Velar Prime is light years away. The antimatter reaction will tear a hole in spacetime itself. Our physicists were quite excited about the discovery, even if the applications are somewhat limited." Santos's voice remained conversational, as if she were discussing the weather rather than the end of civilizations. "We call it a cascading subspace rupture. Very technical, very complicated, very effective." "You're lying. No species could develop such technology in 3 months." "Admiral, we had to work quickly. You gave us no choice." Santos's smile faded. "And we are very, very good at working under pressure. It's what we do. It's what we've always done." The bridge of the eternal justice had gone silent. Admiral Vrex could hear his own heart's beating, feel the blood rushing through his veins. He had commanded fleets that had burned worlds. He had given orders that had ended species. But he had never, in all his long career, faced anything like this. "So here is how this works, Admiral," Santos said. "If your fleet fires a single weapon at Earth, we detonate the Prometheus array. Your fleet dies, Earth dies, and Velar Prime dies with us. The Council homeworld, burned to ash by a species you tried to contain. You would doom your own children, your families, everything you have built." Santos's eyes went hard, harder than Admiral Vrex had ever seen in any being. "Admiral, we have spent our entire existence fighting for survival against impossible odds. We have crawled through extinction events and come out stronger. We have looked death in the face so many times that we have learned its name." She paused. "On Earth, we have a saying, if I am going down, I am taking you with me. We call it spite. And spite, Admiral, is one of humanity's oldest and most reliable survival mechanisms." Admiral Vrex looked at his tactical display. 50,000 warships against one planet. It should have been an easy victory. The mathematics were simple. The outcome was certain, except it wasn't, because mathematics could not account for a species insane enough to end themselves just to end their enemies. "What do you want?" he asked finally. Santos's expression softened slightly. "We want to be left alone. We want to join the galaxy as equals, not as prisoners. We want the respect that any intelligent species deserves." She paused. "And we want you to deliver a message to the Galactic Council." "What message?" "Tell them that Earth was a death world, and we became death to those who threaten us. Tell them that humanity does not bluff, does not beg, and does not surrender. Tell them that the next species that points a weapon at our world had better be ready to fire it, because we certainly will." Admiral Vrex stood in silence for a long moment. "And tell them one more thing," Santos added. "Tell them that we would much rather be friends than enemies. We have so much to offer the galaxy. We have art and music and stories that would make ancient beings weep. We have science that pushes the boundaries of the possible. We have a determination that has carried us through every disaster our world could throw at us." She smiled, and this time there was warmth in it. "But we will not accept being treated as threats simply because we survived. We earned our place among the stars with blood and fire and 10,000 years of refusing to die. We will not give it up now." Admiral Vrex looked at his officers one more time. Then he made the hardest decision of his career. "All ships stand down, power down weapons, set course for Velar Prime." "Admiral," his tactical officer asked, her voice uncertain. "We are leaving," Admiral Vrex said. "We cannot win this fight, not without losing everything." He looked back at the view screen, at the small human woman who had faced down the cleansing fleet with nothing but determination and the willingness to die. "You have won today, Secretary General," he said. "I hope you are right about what your species might become." "So do we, Admiral," Santos replied. "So do we." The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. High Counselor Morthax stared at Admiral Vrex's report as if it might bite him. The other counselors sat in stunned silence around the great circular table, their various faces showing various expressions of shock and disbelief. "They threatened to destroy Velar Prime," Morthax said slowly, each word heavy with disbelief. "They threatened to destroy themselves just to destroy us." "Yes, High Counselor," Admiral Vrex confirmed. He stood before the council in his dress uniform, but he had never felt less victorious. "And you believe they would have done it. This is not some elaborate bluff." Admiral Vrex's voice was steady despite the turmoil in his heart. "High Counselor, I have fought a dozen wars for this council. I have faced species that were stronger than us, faster than us, more numerous than us. I have seen every form of warfare that exists in this galaxy. I have never in all my years faced an enemy that frightened me." He paused. "Until now, these humans, they are not like us. They do not value their own lives above victory." They would rather die fighting than live as prisoners. That makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Counselor Threen, representative of the Vorax Collective, spoke up. Her insectoid features clicked with agitation. Then we must destroy them before they grow stronger, send a larger fleet, overwhelm their defenses. Surely they cannot build enough weapons to threaten the entire galaxy. And if they detonate their array as we approach, Admiral Vrex asked, they will not wait to see if we can stop them. They will act first, consequences be damned. That is how they think. That is how they have always thought. Their entire history is filled with examples of humans choosing death over defeat. Then what do you suggest? Admiral Vrex was quiet for a long moment. Every counselor watched him, waiting for his answer. Finally, he spoke. I suggest that we accept their offer of friendship. The chamber erupted in protest. Dozens of species shouted at once, their translators creating a cacophony of outrage and disbelief. Morthax raised a hand for silence, and slowly, reluctantly, the chamber quieted. Explain, Morthax commanded. The humans are dangerous, yes. They are violent and aggressive and capable of destruction on a scale that we can barely comprehend. But they are also intelligent, creative, and adaptable. If we make them our enemies, we will face an endless war against a species that never gives up and never forgets. Admiral Vrex stepped forward, his voice rising with conviction. But if we make them our allies? He let the thought hang in the air. High Counselor, what could we accomplish with a species that turns everything against them into strength? What could we build with partners who refuse to accept the impossible? What threats could we face if we had the humans standing beside us instead of against us? Morthax considered this. He thought about the reports of human history, how they had crawled out of caves and conquered their world, how they had split atoms and reached for stars, how they had faced extinction 100 times and always come back stronger than before. Very well, he said at last. We will offer humanity a seat on the Galactic Council. We will make them our equals. He looked at Admiral Vrex with ancient, weary eyes. And we will pray to whatever gods exist that we never have to fight them. On Earth, Maria Santos received the news with a tired smile. She was standing in her office in Geneva, looking out at the mountains she had grown up in. Mountains that had been formed by the violent collision of tectonic plates. Mountains that had tried to kill her ancestors with avalanches and cold and predators. Her species had climbed those mountains anyway. They had built homes in their shadows. They had turned death into life, as they always did. We did it, said her aide, a young man named Chen. We actually did it. We scared the Galactic Council into accepting us as equals. Santos shook her head slowly. We didn't scare them, Chen. We showed them who we are. We showed them that we are the children of a Deathworld, shaped by fire and ice and blood. We showed them that we are survivors who will do whatever it takes to survive. She turned from the window and looked at the picture on her desk. It was old, faded, showing a group of early humans huddled around a fire in a cave. It was an artist's recreation, but it captured something true, something essential about what it meant to be human. Our ancestors sat in caves while predators hunted them in the dark, she said softly. They learned to make fire and the darkness became their friend instead of their enemy. They learned to make weapons and the predators became their prey. They learned to make medicine and disease became survivable. Everything that tried to kill us, we turned into a tool, she smiled. And now we have done it again. The Galactic Council tried to make us afraid and instead we made them respect us. Chen nodded slowly. What happens now? Now we join the galaxy. We make friends and trading partners. We explore worlds we never dreamed existed. We share our art and science and stories with species that have never known anything like them. Santos's smile faded slightly. And we remember this day. We remember that we are not safe. We remember that the universe is vast and dangerous and full of beings who do not wish us well. We remember that we are the children of Earth, a death world, a crucible that forged us into something that even ancient species fear. She looked out the window again, at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "We became death to those who threatened us," she said softly, "and now perhaps we can become something more, something that builds rather than destroys, something that heals rather than kills." She paused. "But we will never forget how to fight. We will never forget what we are, because that is what kept us alive, and that is what will keep us alive among the stars." 10 years passed. In that decade, humanity changed the galaxy in ways no one had predicted. They built ships that were faster, stronger, and more efficient than anything the Council had seen before. They developed weapons that made their Prometheus array look like a firecracker, but they also built hospitals that cured diseases that had plagued alien species for millennia. They created art that made ancient beings weep with its beauty. They invented new forms of energy, new methods of travel, new ways of thinking that turned old problems into solved ones. The galaxy watched in amazement and fear. Both reactions were appropriate. Ambassador Crixel, who had become something like a friend to humanity over the years, stood on the observation deck of the new human space station orbiting Mars. Beside him stood Admiral Sarah Chen, daughter of the aide who had stood in Maria Santos's office on the day everything changed. She was tall, dark-haired, with the same sharp eyes as the former Secretary General who had recently passed away peacefully in her sleep. "Your species never stops," Crixel said, his 4 eyes wide as he watched human ships dart between the stars. "In 10 years, you have accomplished what took us 10,000. It should not be possible." Chen smiled. It was a human smile with teeth. Crixel had learned not to find it threatening after years of practice. "We had a lot of catching up to do." "That is not what I mean." Crixel turned to face her fully. "When my species discovered fire, we used it for 1,000 years before we thought to cook food with it. When yours discovered fire, you were cooking food, making tools, and burning down forests within a single generation. You do not simply adapt to new things. You accelerate beyond them." Chen's smile faded slightly. "We had to. Our world forced us to. Every day was a fight for survival. Every generation that couldn't adapt quickly enough died out. We are the descendants of the survivors, Ambassador. We are what's left after everything slow and weak and gentle has been killed off. Does that not frighten you, knowing what you are?" Chen looked out at the stars. Sometimes I wonder what we might have become if our world had been kinder, if we had been given paradise instead of a death world. Would we still be human? Would we still be this? What is this? Dangerous. Chen's voice was soft, beautiful, terrible, capable of the greatest kindness and the greatest cruelty in the same heartbeat. We can look at a child and feel love so powerful it hurts. We can look at an enemy and feel hate so strong it burns. We contain multitudes, Ambassador. We are walking contradictions, shaped by a world that taught us to be everything at once or be nothing at all. Crixel was quiet for a moment, considering her words. "My people have a word for beings like that. We call them gods." Chen laughed, but there was no humor in it. "We're not gods, Ambassador. We're just humans. We're just what happens when life refuses to accept that it should have died." The Threnic swarm arrived in the galaxy 3 months later. They came from beyond the edges of known space, from a region so distant that even light from their homeworld had never reached Council territory. They were a hive mind, billions of creatures acting as one terrifying whole, consuming everything in their path and adding the biomass to their endless numbers. They had devoured a dozen galaxies before finding this one. They had never encountered resistance they couldn't overcome. They were about to learn what real resistance looked like. The Galactic Council sent their fleets to meet the swarm. The result was a massacre unlike anything the galaxy had seen. The swarm adapted to every weapon, every tactic, every strategy that the Council employed. They learned from every attack and became immune to it within hours. Within a year, they had consumed half the outer rim of the galaxy. Within 2 years, they were closing on the core worlds where trillions of beings lived. The Council begged humanity for help. Admiral Chen stood before the assembled council, looking at beings who had once tried to destroy her species. They were afraid now. She could see it in their eyes, their postures, their trembling limbs. They had never faced something they couldn't negotiate with, couldn't contain, couldn't buy off with territory or resources. They had never faced something that just wanted to eat them. The Threnic swarm is unlike any enemy you have ever encountered, Chen said, her voice carrying through the great chamber. They do not want territory because they consume territory. They do not want resources because they consume resources. They do not want power because they are power. They want only to consume. They are entropy given form. They are the death of everything that is not them. High Counselor Morthax, old now, his scales faded and cracked with age, spoke in a voice thin with years and fear. Can you stop them? Chen looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was not a kind smile. High Counselor, we are humans. We are the children of a Deathworld. We were forged in a crucible of fire and ice and blood. We have faced extinction 1,000 times and spat in its eye. She stepped forward, and even the ancient counselors shrank back from the intensity in her gaze. The Threnic swarm is dangerous. They are powerful beyond measure. They have destroyed species and worlds and entire galaxies. Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled every corner of the chamber. But they have never faced us. They have never faced a species that evolved specifically to survive the unsurvivable. They have never faced the thing that death itself learned to fear. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. We will stop them, she said. Not because we want to save the galaxy, though we do. Not because we care about the Council, though some of us do. But because that swarm made one simple mistake. What mistake? Chen's eyes were cold as the void between stars. They threatened us, and we are humans. We became death to those who threaten us. She smiled again, all teeth and no warmth. Now they're going to learn what that means. The Battle of the Carax Nebula was the turning point of the war against the swarm. The Threnics had gathered their greatest force in that swirling mass of gas and dying stars. 1 billion creatures packed into a region of space the size of a solar system, preparing to make their final push into the core worlds. They had consumed 17 Council fleets and felt certain that nothing could stop them now. They were wrong. The human fleet arrived in waves, emerging from subspace like predators rising from dark waters. First came the carriers, massive ships that seemed to bleed smaller vessels like some great wounded beast. Then came the battleships, each one bristling with weapons that the swarm had never encountered before. Then came the fighter wings, thousands of tiny craft that darted and danced like insects with poisonous stingers. And finally, at the heart of the fleet, came something new, something terrible, something that made even the swarm hesitate in its endless hunger. It was called the Thanatos. It was humanity's answer to the swarm's endless adaptability. A ship that didn't just fight, didn't just kill, but consumed right back. Its hull was made of nanomachines that could break down any matter into raw materials. Its weapons didn't just destroy, they disassembled at the molecular level. It was a predator built to hunt predators, a monster designed to fight monsters. The swarm attacked with all its strength. They threw everything they had at the human fleet, waves upon waves of creatures that had consumed galaxies. They adapted and changed and evolved in real time, trying to counter human weapons, human tactics, human fury. But they couldn't adapt fast enough. Humans had spent their entire existence adapting faster than everything around them. They had evolved on a world that changed constantly, that threw new challenges at them every generation. They had learned to think faster, react faster, change faster than any other species in the galaxy. It was bred into their bones and written in their genes. The swarm adapted in hours, humans adapted in minutes. When the swarm developed shields against human plasma weapons, humans switched to kinetic rounds that punched through them. When the swarm evolved armor against kinetic rounds, humans created gravity weapons that crushed them from within. When the swarm tried to board human ships, they found humans waiting for them with weapons designed for fighting in tight spaces, forged from thousands of years of close-quarters combat experience. The battle lasted 3 days. At the end of it, the swarm had lost 90% of their force. The human fleet had lost 40% of theirs, but the humans had won. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Thanatos, looking at the wreckage floating through space. Billions of swarm creatures, dead or dying. Thousands of human ships, broken and burning. The cost had been terrible. She felt it like a weight on her chest, pressing down with every name of every human who had died under her command. But they had won. "It's over," her tactical officer said, relief flooding through his voice. "The swarm is retreating. They're leaving the galaxy." Chen shook her head slowly. "It's not over, not yet." She turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel, wide broadcast. I want the swarm to hear this." The officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Chen took a breath. Then she spoke, and her voice carried across the vastness of space to every swarm creature that remained. "To the Threnic swarm, you came to our galaxy seeking to consume. You found something different. You found humans. We are the children of a death world. We are the thing that death learned to fear. You cannot eat us. You cannot break us. You cannot beat us." She paused, letting her words sink in across the void. "Run. Run as fast as you can. Run as far as you can. Because if you ever come back, if you ever threaten us or our allies again, we will not drive you off. We will hunt you. We will find you wherever you hide. We will end you." She smiled, and it was the smile of a predator that had tasted blood and liked it. "Earth was a death world, and we became death to those who threaten us. Remember that. Remember it forever." The swarm fled. They ran to the edges of the universe and never looked back. And in the galaxy they left behind, everything changed. The Galactic Council was no longer ruled by the ancient species that had guided it for millennia. It was now a true partnership, a genuine alliance of equals where every voice mattered. And at the heart of that alliance stood humanity, no longer feared as a threat but respected as guardians. High Counselor Morthax, in his last act before retiring to spend his final years in peace, gave a speech that was broadcast across every world in the galaxy. "When humanity first came to us, we saw them as a threat. We saw their violence, their aggression, their capacity for destruction. We tried to contain them. We tried to eliminate them." He paused, his old eyes bright with unshed tears. "We were fools." He looked around the chamber at the gathered representatives of 100 species. "We did not understand that the same fire that makes humans dangerous also makes them beautiful. The same fury that makes them terrifying also makes them protective of those they love. They do not simply fight for themselves. They fight for what they believe in. They fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. They fight because fighting is what they are." He looked at the human delegation, led by Admiral Chen. "Call yourselves the children of a death world. You say that you became death to those who threatened you, but I have watched you for 20 years now. I have seen you heal the sick across 100 worlds. I have seen you feed the hungry without asking for payment. I have seen you reach out to species that feared you and offer them friendship without conditions. I have seen you build and create and dream of things beyond imagining." His voice cracked with emotion. "You are not just death. You are life that refuses to end. You are hope that refuses to die. You are the spark that lights the darkness." He bowed, an ancient gesture of respect from his species. "Thank you for saving us. Thank you for showing us what true strength looks like. And thank you for being exactly what you are. Impossible, beautiful, terrible, wonderful humans." The galaxy cheered. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the station orbiting Earth, watching the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. The water turned gold and red and purple, colors that had greeted her ancestors when they first crawled out of that ocean millions of years ago. Ambassador Crixel stood beside her, as he often did these days. "Your species has come far," he said softly. Chen nodded. We had help. No, you had opposition, you had enemies. You had challenges that would have broken any other species, and you turned all of it into strength as you always do. Crixel's 4 eyes fixed on her. That is what makes you terrifying, and that is what makes you magnificent. Chen smiled, and this time it was a real smile, warm and genuine. We're not finished yet, you know. There's still so much to explore, so many problems to solve, so many worlds to see, so many friends to make. And threats to face. Her smile didn't fade, but something old and hard glinted in her eyes. There are always threats, Ambassador. The universe is vast and dangerous and full of things that want to eat us or destroy us or consume us. But that's okay. That's what we were built for. We are the children of a death world. We are what happens when life refuses to surrender to death. She looked up at the stars, at the countless points of light that represented countless worlds and countless possibilities. Earth was a death world, she said softly, and we became death to those who threaten us, but we also became something more. We became explorers who will never stop seeking new horizons, healers who will never stop fighting disease and suffering, builders who will never stop creating wonders, dreamers who will never stop reaching for the impossible. She turned to Crixel. We became exactly what a death world needed us to be, survivors who never forgot how to live. Crixel watched her for a moment. Then slowly, he did something that no Velthari had ever done to a human before. He reached out and touched her shoulder, a gesture of deep respect and connection in his culture. Then let us explore together, he said. Let us heal together, let us build together, let us dream together. Chen placed her hand over his. Together, she agreed. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if they too were welcoming humanity to take its place among them. Not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as what they had always been at their best. Survivors, protectors, friends, the children of a death world who had become death to those who threatened them, and then had chosen to become something more, something that built rather than destroyed, something that protected rather than attacked, something that reached out in friendship rather than in fear. Something wonderful. Maria Santos had been right all those years ago. Humanity had earned its place among the stars with blood and fire and 10,000 years of refusing to die. And now that they had that place, they were determined to make it mean something. They were humans. They were death to those who threatened them. And they were only getting started.